I didn't want to be gay when I was, 12, 13 years old. But then eventually it became undeniable. And I started to relax a little bit into the idea and let myself go there emotionally and explore the idea in my head. And the more I did that, the less scary it became. And actually, the more exciting it became because I wasn't running away from this thing anymore. And I was like, oh, actually, when I let myself go there mentally, I find that there's actually a lot of joy there and a lot of comfort because it just, it's the truth of who I am.
Today on Rainbow Country, a teenage boy's unexpected crush turns a camping trip into a weekend of self-discovery in this heartwarming coming-of-age comedy, Big Boys. That is the premise of the new award-winning gay film, and joining me to talk about all things Big Boys is the film's writer and director, Corey Sherman.
There he is.
Jamie, this is my boyfriend, Dan.
It's good to meet you, bud.
Good to meet you.
Allie's bringing her boyfriend?
I thought this was supposed to be a cousins-only camping trip.
That's what Mom said, I don't know.
They're just gonna be having sex the whole time.
They're not gonna have sex the whole time.
Maybe not the whole time, but it'll be a marathon.
You need some help?
No.
Have you actually ever set up a tent before? Or?
Can't be that hard.
Oh,
Oh, What do you think about Dan? I feel like he doesn't like me for some reason.
Are you gay?
Will, I'm not gay.
You still haven't had your first hookup, right?
Oh, you have an eyelash. Ow! Oh, sorry, Erica. The alcohol is like, I'm a little drunk.
I have never seen him like this.
I didn't know you were in here.
you want to come in?
I drew this picture.
Yeah, that's something there, man. You're really talented. You got a girlfriend?
Not at this exact moment.
Is there a girl you like?
Yeah, kind of.
Does she know you like her?
Oh, probably not, no.
Why do you feel like you need to impress Dan so much?
Just kind of want him to like me.
You gotta tell her, man. You have no idea what you could be missing out on.
Hi, everyone. This is Mark Tewksbury, Olympic champion, reader, humanitarian. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Corey Sherman, hi, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
I have to say thank you for being here, to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond, Corey, especially to talk about your new award-winning film, Big Boys. I believe you wrote this, you directed this, you produced this. I believe you even co-edited this movie. Let's start at the beginning, on the ground level. Talk to me about the story that you're telling in Big Boys.
Yeah. So Big Boys is about Jamie, a 14-year-old boy who goes on a camping trip with his older cousin, and she brings along her new boyfriend. And at first he's upset that the boyfriend is coming because he just wanted sort of cousin-only time with this older cousin of his who he really loves. But then he slowly starts to warm up to this guy and really, really like him and finds that he really wants this guy to like him back as well. And eventually Jamie starts to come to terms with the fact that he's got a crush on this guy. And it's like the first time he's ever let himself go there emotionally. And it's really exciting, but it's also really scary. And it leads him to on this sort of like journey of like self-acceptance and honesty over the course of this camping weekend about who he really is. And it was just a story that like I had always wanted to tell since I was pretty young, since I was going through a lot of the same things Jamie goes through in the movie, which is just like the moment when you start to come out to yourself and you stop denying it and you start to let these feelings in. And there's such a high to, I found at least, to finally just like letting yourself go there emotionally and be like, I am attracted to men. And wanted to capture that feeling of the like how good it can feel when you just like accept yourself for who you are and accept who you want. And I wanted it to be like a story of like a young person getting a taste of that joy and it giving them sort of like a sense of hope for the future.
Is it fair to say that this is essentially your story?
It's not just my story. There's definitely stuff in there that is like really influenced by, my time growing up as like a chubby gay middle schooler. Lots of little details. I was also really into cooking in the way that Jamie's really into cooking. And I also sort of would get these kinds of crushes on like these older guys, like a cousin's boyfriend or, a brother's friend or something like that.
You sound like
And
Jamie then.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot that's similar to Jamie. But then, there's a lot from Jamie that's influenced by people in my own life and also the actors themselves. The actors brought so much specificity and life and humor to their characters, stuff that I never could have dreamed of. So it was nice to feel the world of Big Boys be like fleshed out so much by their contributions.
Were you apprehensive at all to include aspects of yourself in the story rather than it just being 100% fiction? Were you at all hesitant to include aspects of your own journey?
No, that stuff was really exciting to me because it felt very cathartic to like put that stuff out there, especially because so much of what this story is based on is just a very private, internal, pretty heavily like shameful part of my childhood where and I say shameful as in like I felt a lot of shame about being gay. And I wanted a movie that put all that stuff out on the surface in the hopes that anybody who went through something similar could identify with it and feel more seen and understood by the movie and hopefully celebrate it as well. So it felt like anything that was like really specific and true to me, that was like the stuff where I was like, I have a feeling that like other people have experienced this too. And so essentially, if I'm able to be really honest about those aspects of my own experience, I like that to me felt like the stuff that had the best chance of connecting with other people.
So what I'm about to say to you is the same thing that I said to uh, an Academy Award winner, and he did the stunts for a little movie that you may have heard of called Ford v Ferrari.
Mm.
And he did the stunts for that, Peter Nagel. And what I'm about to say to you, I said to Peter, and I said this. I saw your film, and I did not like your film, Corey. I did not like it.
Oh my God, that is fascinating. Tell me more.
I didn't like it. I loved it.
Oh, okay. I was ready to rumble.
So this is your debut film. What inspired you to want to tell this story, part of your journey, as your debut film? Talk to me about where the inspiration came for you to want to tell it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of connected to what we were just talking about, which is just like this feeling of all these like moments and details and feelings that I had as that kid and wanting to put that stuff on screen because I felt like I hadn't seen it before, especially the sort of like yearning for somebody who you can't have because I feel like a lot of these sort of coming of age or like romance movies, they are all about two people sort of coming together. And I had a lot of frustration with these experiences growing up where the desire was totally one-sided and unreciprocated. And like I didn't know how to make sense of those experiences because I didn't see them reflected to me in media. So I didn't know how to feel about them or what sense of sort of closure to get from them. And so I wanted to make a movie that like honored that as its own worthwhile experience of somebody growing up. And then I was also really interested in telling a movie. I mean, the movie is called Big Boys for a reason. It was called that from the very beginning of like a movie about a big kid and the ways in which he feels self-conscious about his body, but then sort of sees this role model in this older guy, Dan, who is a big guy, but feels a lot of confidence in his body and moves through the world with a lot of like comfort and pride. And I like the idea of that rubbing off on Jamie and him starting to feel like, oh, maybe I could feel that same way about my own body. Again, because I hadn't seen a lot of that stuff in media growing up. The bigger characters usually sidelined as like the sidekick or sort of like a
Mhm.
clown. And I wanted to make something that really put him front and center.
In regards to the script and the acting, was there a lot of improv in this movie?
Yeah, there is. We did a lot of improv. We did during a week of rehearsal before we started shooting. And that was so helpful, of course, in making the movie funnier and also just like in loosening up the dialogue. Because some stuff, you write and it looks fine on the page, but then you have an actor actually read it out loud and you're like, oh, that's never going to work. Nobody would ever say that. And then it was so nice working with such talented, insightful actors who were able to rework the dialogue. So it sounded like something that would way, more naturally come out of that person. And then we also did some improv on set, which was really fun. There's a scene where the characters are playing the board game Taboo with each other, and they're just really playing that game. And it was so fun to film something that had a little bit more of like a sort of documentary quality, where it's just like we had two cameras rolling and the actors were in character, improvising with each other, really playing this board game.
The music. The music, so well done and so well suited to the scenes, I think. I believe from Will Wiesenfeld?
Wiesenfeld, yeah.
Wiesenfeld. There's also a soundtrack for Big Boys, isn't there?
Yeah, it just came out. It's on Bandcamp, on Will Wiesenfeld's Bandcamp. You can look it up, the Big Boys soundtrack.
Hmm.
And that also has like 17 extra bonus tracks that are just like wonderful tracks that Will wrote for the movie that didn't make it into the final cut, but were tracks that I loved. And I'm very excited that people get to hear all of them now, in addition to the tracks from the movie.
The title, Big Boys. Was this always going to be the title? Is there a story behind this particular title?
Yeah, that came to me while I was still in the writing stage. And I liked the title a lot. Because, like I said, it sort of points to it's sort of like a playful nod to the size of the characters, that it's about these big guys. And then also just like the fact that it's about someone who's maturing and coming into himself and growing up, and the idea of like by the end of the movie, I feel like both actually, Jamie, the main character, and Dan, his crush, have evolved in a way, and the idea of like them being mature and taking care of one another ends up becoming a theme of the movie. And so I liked Big Boys for that reason as well.
Were there other names in contention, maybe like bears or bears versus otters or something like that?
I think I probably tried to make something with Bears work. I think I had the working title like My Cousin's Boyfriend for a long time, but I think that sounded too much like My Cousin Vinny. So, but we decided to go another route.
So Corey Sherman, you are part of the LGBT community. I'm gay. You're gay. For yourself, when did you begin to start recognizing that aspect of yourself, that you had these same-sex attractions? For you growing up, when did that start happening for you?
Yeah, that really started to happen in middle school, like right around where it happens for Jamie, where I just started to notice men in the places I was going in, whatever, like gym shower rooms or like at the beach, or even just noticing like my friends' fathers, like that, all that sort of slowly crept up on me, and I pushed it down because it was frightening to me. I didn't want to be gay when I was 12, 13 years old, but then eventually it became undeniable, and I started to relax a little bit into the idea and let myself go there emotionally and explore the idea in my head. And the more I did that, the less scary it became. And actually, the more exciting it became, because I wasn't running away from this thing anymore. And I was like, oh, actually, when I let myself go there mentally, I find that there's actually a lot of joy there and a lot of comfort, because it just, it's the truth of who I am. And I started to become really just like excited about the idea of eventually coming out and, meeting men, finding a boyfriend, all of that stuff. And there was a journey, like I feel like it required a lot of patience, because I still had to get through a lot of like adolescence where like that stuff really wasn't immediately available to me. Like there weren't a lot of like other out kids in my year. Like I was barely out to anyone myself. Like there was definitely some like a waiting period between coming out to myself and then actually starting to enter the gay world. But once I did, it was off to the races. It's been a good time ever since.
So I believe it's around like, the first, couple minutes of the film, the opening of Big Boys. there's no words. There's just action. There's some looks. Your main character Jamie essentially clocks one of his neighbors, maybe that he's attracted to, but recognizes maybe an aspect of himself that he's gay. His neighbor is gay. I remember having crushes when I was younger, on a teacher or a classmate or a random neighbor in the neighborhood. The opening of this film, I think a lot of gay people, I think, would be able to relate to. Was it always a plan to open the film the way that you did?
Thanks for asking that. Yeah, it actually wasn't. We thought that we would just open it on Jamie in his bedroom having this conversation with his brother about their camping trip. But then we shot it that way and we edited it and we looked at it and it felt like we just didn't have enough time to get into Jamie's head and like align ourselves with him and start to feel this sort of like undercurrent of something changing inside him and his like desire for men sort of starting to wake up. And we wanted to find a way to do that subtly. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to do some reshoots and some pickups about like 6 months after we did principal photography. And so, yeah, we shot like a new intro scene. And once we put it in there, I was like, oh, okay, this feels a lot better. We're with Jamie and we're already starting to feel like where he's at emotionally from the get-go.
It's so identifiable. I remember myself, being a little kid, like, maybe like 11 or something, standing on a balcony looking down at, this group of guys, and one of them was in a wheelchair and he was like the leader and he was so cool and I had a crush on him. And I remember this one time he looked at me and I ducked. I ducked under the balcony railing because I had a crush on him from afar. So, the first handful of minutes of this film, I'm like, it took me back to my childhood. It was very effective.
I'm so glad to hear that.
It was very effective in that way. Like I could relate to Jamie in that way. So well done to you doing that, following through with that.
Thanks. That's really like the highest compliment I could hear is that it felt like it reminded you of your own life and brought you back there in an evocative way.
Did you always want to be a filmmaker?
Yeah, since I was pretty young, since I was like 9 or 10, it was pretty clear to me that was just the kind of thing that just was so fun for me and so fulfilling. And I just really wanted to do in my free time. And it didn't feel like work. And, there were movies I was falling in love with. And, it was really exciting to me to try to essentially copy what those movies were doing. And it's never really changed.
What are some of those films
really
that inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was really young, it was like Spirited Away, this movie called Triplets of Belleville. A lot of animated movies are actually my favorite movies to this day. But then as I got older, movies like Donnie Darko, like Slacker, The Social Network, Boyhood. Yeah, I got more into stuff that was like a little bit more like naturalistic, sort of like slice of life. And that's I think that interest is way more on display in something like Big Boys, which was, trying to make it as sort of like feel like sort of, sorry, one second. Feel sort of like everyday and grounded as possible. That was really exciting to me.
When you were starting to make this film, looking for funding, that sort of thing, did you ever get any pushback from potential investors or anything like that? Maybe like, don't make it so gay, or have a girlfriend on the side or something like that. Did you ever get any pushback?
Luckily, no. Everybody was very supportive of the movie, and I was very lucky to have like a lot of friends and family who were willing to contribute and just believed in the project and could see how invested in it I was and how much I wanted to do justice to this story. And yeah, it was low homophobia on the fundraising stage.
So this film, Big Boys, did the film festival circuit scene and has won a number of awards. Did the response to your film, your debut film, Did the response to your debut film, did it surprise you?
Yeah. I mean, just getting the chance to watch the movie with audiences, there's things that they reacted to that they laughed at or cringed at that I never would have expected. And that was part of like the thrill of watching it with a bunch of people in a room. Um, and you learn so much about your movie, about the ways in which people relate to it and just what lands. I always find that so interesting. And also, getting to watch it with different audiences in different cities and countries, and you get to see some of the cultural differences. But then I mean, I didn't quite expect some of the older audience members, like guys from generations before me, to really connect with this movie. Some people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s and 90s, like telling me that this movie felt like their childhoods and that it felt like something they hadn't exactly seen on screen before, or it felt like healing or cathartic in any type of way. Like I was um honestly just very honored that like people who have lived that much life and also been through as much change in the way that gay people can live in our society and and the degrees to which they're accepted or unaccepted. The fact that they felt seen by the movie and like they could relate to it felt made me feel really, really proud. And it like made me feel I think just like even more connected to the queer community because it felt like we were trying to get at um I guess some things that clearly are a little bit more universal and timeless than was even my intention going into it.
So, like I just said, Big Boys is your debut film, an award-winning film. It did the film festival circuit scene, won a number of awards there. It's now out to the world on various streaming services. Do you feel any sort of pressure, any sort of feeling some kind of way in regards to what do you do next?
That is a very perceptive question because the answer is yes. A lot of that pressure is just, self-applied. It's just my own sense of feeling proud of how Big Boys turned out and wanting to feel just as proud of the next project. And also some of the pressure of just like I felt like I went to a place like a pretty like for me deep place emotionally. Like there was a wellspring of experiences and feelings that I was able to tap into for Big Boys. And I'm just being mindful of wanting to come from as specific and genuine of a place on the next project. And there's stuff I have in mind that I'm working on that I'm really excited about. Um, and I'm trying to both like I said, be mindful of making sure that like it's coming from a place of strong feeling inside of myself, but also to let it be its own thing and not try to copy Big Boys or like redo it. I mean, the best thing I could do really for my own fulfillment and sanity, and also I think for the audience's enjoyment, is to just explore new territory and let myself take new risks and embrace new challenges. Because I'm so happy with how Big Boys turned out, and I feel like let that be its own thing, and let's look forward to like a next new thing.
Or
Do a sequel.
you can start a whole genre of boy films where you've got big boys, then skinny boys, then femme boys, then muscular boys, and do a whole
The Boys series. That could be a really profitable franchise.
horny boys. So like I
Horny
said,
Boys, yeah, After Dark.
so like I said, people can watch Big Boys on YouTube, on Apple TV, on Google Play. Here's my last question for you. What do you hope your audience comes away with, takes away from Big Boys? What do you hope your audiences come away with after seeing your debut award-winning film, Big Boys?
I hope that they feel, most of all, like seen by the movie. Like the movie gets at things from their own personal experience that they haven't seen on screen before, that it feels funny and cathartic and hopefully healing to see and presented in a context that's like really compassionate so that they can look at that side of themselves hopefully with like a little bit more compassion and understanding and warmth. and also for people to be encouraged, especially any young people who are struggling with their sexuality or accepting themselves, or any family members who are struggling to accept another family member of a different sexuality, to just understand the place that, like, how important it is to like accept like a young queer person, that what they're going through is difficult and takes time, and like the more support that that person can get, or the more love that that person can give themselves, the better. And that you can think of somebody like Jamie as an example of like that kid really deserves a lot of love and doesn't deserve to feel any shame, and that people can feel heartened by the experience of the movie and just want to support queer people in their lives. And also, I think just in be encouraged to be more honest in general, like regardless of your sexuality, like just the importance of being honest about who you are and not hiding in shame or secrecy. And if you have feelings about someone or something, to put it out there into the world. Because I've always found that it's so much better to speak that kind of stuff out loud than to hold it inside.
Well said, well said. Corey Sherman, well said, well done, well filmed. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really great questions. I enjoyed talking to you.